not to think that Lync is not working properly. It's working perfectly. And we'll start the presentation this afternoon. So first of all, a big warm welcome. Thank you for attending this 1 hour long webinar, where the topic for this afternoon will be how to leverage cloud technology to win in today's market. And clearly some of you have already adopted some cloud technology of some sort, whether from a business or personal basis. We all use cloud technology to some degree. In fact, if you have a Windows-based machine, you may not be even think that you're using cloud today, except that the Windows Update feature is actually the world's largest cloud service. So every time you get new updates for your Windows operating system, that is Microsoft's biggest cloud service that exists in the world today. So a quick introduction to ourselves. We are LiveRoute. We are Microsoft's top cloud partner here in the Gulf region. And we actually launched with Microsoft service like Office 365 back in 2011 at the GITEX show. And since then, we've been having a huge growth in terms of the number of companies that are adopting cloud solutions. You know, if you had perhaps spoken to the majority of companies 2 years ago, cloud was very new. It was something that was unproven, untested, and also a bit of a fear for most organizations. That has changed nowadays, and cloud is seen as an essential part of the IT strategy. In fact, almost all customers that we speak to are exploring, evaluating how they can better leverage or how they can leverage cloud to have improvements in terms of their flexibility, how to drive down costs. And that's exactly what we as LiveRoute do as an organization. We provide the professional services to successfully migrate you to the cloud. And we have about 100 customers successfully migrated today that can speak to the benefits that they have now derived from making this move. LiveRoute is, like I said, Microsoft's top partner. We have the highest cloud certifications. So that means that we have what's called Azure Circle when we're talking about the Microsoft Azure service, and we're a Cloud Accelerate partner, cloud deployment partner for Office 365. So these are the highest certifications. It also means that the experience that we have gained from doing these 100 implementations has allowed us to hit really almost every scenario out there in the marketplace. Customers coming from different environments, different email systems, with a lot of different a lot of different requirements in terms of moving workloads, business workloads to the cloud. We have hit the majority of these scenarios and have the experience to know how to successfully make that deployed in the cloud. So when we talk about cloud, the first question that most organizations ask is, why cloud? And clearly the first major reason is business agility. Your company is looking for a new campaign perhaps, or they want to set up a new service, they want to set up a new line of business application, and you need to move quickly. So cloud allows you to do that. Cloud resources allow you to provision computing resources very quickly and allow you to respond to business changes. Second of all is that the fact that the cloud means that a lot of the maintenance and administration is taken care of by the service provider. In this case, we'll say Microsoft. Then it allows your IT administrators, your IT team to focus more on the business core activities so that you're not worrying perhaps about email systems or a collaboration portal or a communication system. That might be all taken care of for you, and you can really work on line of business applications. Perhaps they are ERP systems, perhaps they're point of sale systems, etc., which are really driving the money, the business in your organization. And thirdly, and very clearly, a very important point for most organizations is the fact that you can drive down your total cost of ownership compared to having a traditional on-premise solution. And how is that? Well, very clearly, if you no longer need to procure servers with storage space, you don't need to power them on and cool them, take up space in a rack, or procure additional racks for all of these additional servers. You have a lot of savings there from an infrastructure point of view, but also from the administration and maintenance point of view, being that a lot of these tasks are taken care of for you from a maintenance perspective by Microsoft. You also save a lot of your human resources bandwidth, which is what allows you to focus on other activities. And obviously you want to consider cloud for all of these reasons, but at the same time you still want to be secure, have safe computing environment, as well as having a highly reliable environment, which is very important. Most of your applications are mission critical. You want to ensure that these will continue to run even though you don't have control of that physical box in your own data center. And that's exactly some of the guarantees that Microsoft provide as part of their service. So for those of you that already use clouds of some sort, you're probably already quite aware of the different types of cloud computing. So this can be either IaaS or infrastructure as a service, which if you're already familiar with using services like Rackspace or Amazon or even Microsoft Azure itself, you're already familiar with IaaS. This is the ability to rent computing power in the form of virtual machines, in terms of disk space, and have that used for your virtual data center. And it allows you to basically deploy any type of solution that you want onto these virtual machines and have that all taken care of from an infrastructure, networking, and even operating system point of view by Microsoft. Then there's also platform as a service, and this allows you to use solutions very, very quickly and deploy solutions without having to worry about underlying infrastructure, or in many cases sometimes underlying platform itself. So things like databases, if you require a SQL Server database, but you don't need to, or you don't have any care about procuring the licenses or setting up SQL Server itself, you can use SQL Server as a service. And that's probably the easiest form of explaining platform as a service. It lets you get up and running very quickly without really worrying about the underlying platform or infrastructure. And then thirdly, which is under this verb of consume, in other words, I don't worry at all about the infrastructure. I also don't worry about the platform, but I also don't worry about the software itself. It's software as a service, which is what a service like Office 365 provides you. And the ability to immediately use an application or a service without having to really make any investments in the underlying technology itself, and you're consuming it really as a subscription model that you pay monthly or yearly, and this is the easiest way of cloud computing, as you will see. So one of the things that you need to be aware of to feel comfortable with, where is my data sitting and how secure is it, which is one of the primary concerns of any company out there, are the Microsoft data centers. Now, the Microsoft data centers are spread around the world. For the Middle East and Gulf area, the data centers that are used primarily are the European data centers. They're the ones with the lowest round-trip delay when we're talking about from a networking perspective. Typically you can get under 100 millisecond round trip when you are pinging these servers, and you get very, very good performance from them. And these data centers are geographically redundant as well. What does this mean? It means that if you're contracting a service, let's say Office 365 or Microsoft Azure, the data that you have in one data center is also going to be available in a backup data center, so that even if the entire data center were to go down, your service would continue to run and your data would continue to be available. And that is very, very important. So here for the Gulf region, your billing is done in US dollars, and it is billed on a, if we're talking about Azure, it is billed on a per minute rate, and Office 365, depending on the subscription plan that you have, is billed on a per user per month rate. Okay, you will notice that there are two different colored dots on this map, the green ones and the blue ones, and the green dots are actually the content delivery network nodes that Microsoft has around the world. So if you happen to have a service that requires that maybe you've got a number of media files, video files that you want to host on Microsoft Azure, and you want to make them geographically closer to your users, this is especially handy for media type of companies. So they might have streaming videos, etc., that they want to ensure that are not being streamed from a geographically distant server. Then you can use one that is much closer regionally, as Microsoft has a content delivery network node in Qatar, for example. And the blue dots are obviously the Microsoft data centers themselves. Although this map is a little old, they've already opened up new data centers in Brazil. There's also in Japan, Australia. So they're constantly growing. And these are the most advanced fourth generation data centers. And as you will see in a following slide, Microsoft has invested billions of dollars to ensure that these data centers are not only safe, secure, and reliable, however, that they are complying with a lot of standards to give the customers that comfort level of knowing that they are highly safe, audited on a regular basis by an external company, and that all of this is available to the customers. In fact, there is a website which is the Trust Center. So if you just do a search on the internet for Trust Center, Microsoft Trust Center, you'll find Trust Centers that cover Office 365 or Microsoft Azure and talk in a lot of detail about all of the things that Microsoft does to certify that their data centers are highly compliant with standards such as ISO 27001 and the other industries such as healthcare and finance. And so you'll see it here, we have globally redundant data centers. Okay, billions of dollars of investment are pumped into these data centers by Microsoft. You have compliance with ISO 27001 that I have just mentioned, HIPAA, which is the healthcare industry in the US, FISMA, which is the financial industry, the EU model clauses, and in fact just recently Microsoft was awarded as the first and only cloud provider to meet the EU's levels of data privacy. So, Microsoft has been making great strides here to ensure that you feel comfortable and that your management feels that Microsoft has taken all the steps necessary to ensure that your data and that your service is safe and reliable. So, when we go back to this whole reason as to why cloud, there's obviously some drivers in the marketplace which are determining why organizations are looking for a competitive advantage, right? Businesses are facing many challenges. There are trends in our market today where we have users that are bringing their own devices into their workplace, expecting to be able to connect that up to their enterprise, be able to access their emails, perhaps access their collaboration portal. And, employees are expecting to be able to access this data from basically anywhere. So whether they are on their laptop, they're on their smartphone, or perhaps they just have a web browser in front of them, they want to be able to access their services, they want to be able to access their data. So it's very important that there is a way that we can provide them these services so that they are more productive. And it's a reality that in today's world, people are traveling very frequently, whether this is because they're traveling outside of their city, going on plane trips, or they are salespeople who are always on the road, or simply you have an executive that is working from home and wants to be able to access all of the same services and data as he would if he was in the office. So all of these are challenges that are IT challenges, and how do we meet that, right? So essentially we can summarize this as we need access from anywhere. We need to be able to collaborate better. We also want to make it easy for IT. So we're increasing the number of services, the number of capabilities we're providing to our end users, but we don't want to complicate things for IT. In fact, the reverse. We want to make it easier. And all of this has to also be economically feasible. So best value means, it needs to make sense. And obviously from doing TCO analysis, which is a service that we provide to our customers, we actually can provide you with hard data using your numbers on how the total cost of ownership of using cloud is much more competitive than continuing with the traditional on-premise strategy. So the first service I will talk about here is Office 365. And some of you may already be aware of this, others may not. And Office 365 is currently Microsoft's largest growing business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and it is software as a service. You remember from the previous slide, here you do not have to worry about servers, you do not have to worry about licenses. All of it is taken care of for you. You simply consume this as a service where you are billed on either a monthly or yearly basis. And Office 365 is truly the best productivity solution out there in the marketplace. It allows you to have all of your files centrally stored on the cloud, also synchronized and available on all of your devices, as well as the ability to access your data from anywhere, use the services such as the Exchange service for email contacts and calendaring, as well as any of the Office applications from wherever you happen to be, whether that be your smartphone or just through a web browser. You can access all of that. The other thing is, from an IT perspective, is that the administration is highly simplified. You have a web-based administration, but it doesn't mean that you are getting a dumbed down or a very simplified ability to administer. Any of the more complicated or sophisticated administration tasks that you think you will need to do, you can still drop down to PowerShell. If you're familiar with that, you can use remote PowerShell to do batch jobs and things like that. So you do not lose control. IT continues to have control. IT continues to have to do administration tasks, but they no longer have to worry about the infrastructure, the software, the licenses behind it. So here's some examples of the benefits that you would get by using Office 365. One of the nice ones is the fact that you can grow or shrink depending on the business market, your organization's requirements at will. So you can scale up and you can scale down. You are growing, and over the next 6 months you expect you're going to add another 50 employees, 100 employees. That's not a problem. As soon as you onboard them, you can provision an account for them, which will be ready in minutes. And in contrast, if you have perhaps finished a campaign, or God forbid that we have a downturn in our economic cycle again, where we need to remove employees from the organization, we can also do the same, and we're only paying for the number of employees that are actually using the service. It also means that we are giving easy tools for our employees to use their own devices to connect to the services such as email, and that we have a way of also controlling that. So when we are providing, depending on the plan that we're using as part of Office 365, and I'll show you quickly a slide in one of the future slides here that I have in this deck, a summary of some of the more well-known subscription plans, because there are many in Office 365. But some of the more common ones include the actual Office package as part of your subscription. And this is something that I want to make very clear, is perhaps because of the name of the service, it is a bit confusing to some users. Office 365 is a combination of using your Office Professional Plus package that you would typically install on your computer, along with background server-side technologies such as the Exchange server, SharePoint server, and Lync server. Okay, and it does not mean that if you're using your Office as part of your subscription, that you can only use it when you're online. That is not true at all, and I want to make sure that you're well aware of that. But you get advantages such as You can install Office actually on up to 5 devices per user. So that's a very nice message to tell your employees when you move to Office 365, is to say you can now go and install Office Professional Plus on all of your home computers, whether that be Windows or Mac machines. The other thing is that, of course, the latest version of Office package has got streaming technology, which means that when you start the installation directly from the internet, it will stream the most important functions and the ones that you're requesting in the background. So you can typically get up and running with Office from a fresh install in under 1 minute, which is really a remarkable and revolutionary way of installing software, so that while you're using it, the rest of the Office package is being streamed and installed without you knowing in the background. It also means that, if you go visit a family member for the weekend and you find that you need to work on a Word document, and that your family member does not have Office installed on their machine, you can actually stream it down to their machine and activate it immediately using your user ID and password, and get to work directly with all of your files that you have stored on Office 365. And then once you're done, you can remove that as well from that machine, so that you don't take up one of your 5 possible devices per user. The other nice thing is that, being that we're talking about centralized cloud storage for your documents, for all of your settings, for all of your emails, it means that if you lose your PC, or it is stolen, or you have a hard drive crash, it's as easy as getting your machine replaced or your hard drive replaced, and as soon as you sign on to the Office 365 service, you can immediately synchronize all of your data back again. All of your emails, contacts, and calendars will reappear, and all of your data is made available that you have been working on, that is automatically synchronized and backed up on the cloud. So very, very handy. Also a very, very nice peace of mind to ensure that this whole concept of backups really is not as important as it perhaps once used to be. So this anywhere access, this is something that customers are requesting more and more, because that's the way our society is living. We are increasingly on the move, increasingly using smartphones and tablets as well, and want to be able to access our data from anywhere. So the first thing that is very important is that you need to know that Office 365 will work for you from anywhere, whether you're working with it from home, from the office, or from any remote location. You can use any device, you can access all of your data, and you can use your Office apps. So Office 365 is the service that provides you with all of this functionality. As an Office 365 subscriber, you automatically, in addition to those 5 devices per user that can install the Office Professional Plus package, you can get, for no additional charge, the Office mobile applications. So whether that you're using the Windows Phone platform, iOS devices like the iPad or iPhone, or Android, you can download for no charge and use the full functionality of the Office mobile apps on the move, linked to your Office 365 subscription. Okay. The Office package is not just for Windows, right? It's for your Mac. And when we talk about these 5 devices per users, it includes the Mac. So this year, when Microsoft releases Office for Mac 2014, you can also download that as part of your subscription. And that's one of the big benefits of the cloud as well. You never have to worry about upgrades, etc. The server-side upgrades are done automatically and transparently to your users. Whereas the client-side, you always have the right to install the latest version. In fact, even if you did not want to install the latest version, they give you the option of installing the previous version as well, and you are properly licensed and have the right to do that. So in today's current market, as the latest version of Office is the Office 2013, you also can download Microsoft Office Professional Plus for 2010. And in fact, you can have both of them running simultaneously, as they do work side by side. We've talked about this, and what is important to talk about here is the fact that even from a simple web browser, if you're, let's say, in a hotel, which gives you an internet terminal to connect to read your webmail, etc., but does not have any Office applications, by signing in to your Office 365 portal with your user ID and password, you get access to all of your files, and you get a very, very complete version of the Outlook web application where you can read all of your emails, you can sort them, search, you can in fact also do your instant messaging to your other colleagues directly from that application, and access all of your files, share them, open up any Office document and edit it directly in the browser. As there are browser-based versions of PowerPoint online, Excel online, Word online, it allows you to do work directly through a web browser without actually having the Office package installed. Very clearly, if you are a sophisticated Office user and you're looking for certain functionalities which might be more complex, you will not find it on the online version, but definitely to do quick edits and to be able to see a document exactly as it was intended from a formatting point of view, seeing all of the graphics where it's supposed to be, or even printing out the document, you can do all of that using the web-based versions. It's also good to mention that by using the web-based versions, you do not lose the functionality of the ribbon menu. So you still get that, so you can access all of the common functions that you're used to using from the locally installed version, and that any files and any documents that you create using the web versions are fully compatible with the Office on locally installed versions. So that is probably one of the biggest benefits of the Microsoft platform, is that your file integrity is guaranteed. Whether you begin a document from the web version or from the locally installed Office version and you edit it vice versa in the other version, it will work and display properly. One of the nice new features that has been introduced recently into Office 365 is the ability to not only co-author, in other words, you can have multiple people editing simultaneously the same document, and you can see exactly where they are in the document, where their cursor is located as they type in real time, the same whether it be in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. However, there is enterprise social networking built into it, so that in the right-hand panel, you can see other colleagues, whether they're online or offline, the comments that they have made about this file or the changes that have been made to it. So this is a very, very nice feature which really helps in the collaboration efforts that Microsoft is making to ensure that organizations can work more productively, more effectively, and that enterprise social networking, which is one of the other major drivers in today's business environment, is built in or woven into this platform. So we're talking now about collaboration and how to work better together. One of the big features of Office 365 is Lync. I mentioned that the three features are Exchange, or the server technologies are Exchange, SharePoint, and Lync. And for those of you who are familiar with Lync, know that typically Lync is one of those services or solutions that has been installed on-premise, has used up, as a minimum usually 5 servers, and provides an excellent platform for unified communications. It's a platform which has now become really the #1 unified communications platform according to Gartner Group, and it allows you to do instant messaging, see the presence of your fellow colleagues, as well as start audio and video calls, do web conferencing as we're doing now, set up multi-party high-definition video calls as well, which is very handy, and can integrate with room-based video conferencing systems as well. Now, one of the features that Lync does, which Lync Online does not provide as part of Office 365, is Enterprise Voice. So that is not available today. If you need Enterprise Voice, in other words, you want to either integrate to your existing PBX or you want to use Lync as your PBX, as your single communications platform, then today Lync needs to be installed on-premise. But it will work with Lync Online. So if you have users that do not require that feature but need to have a Lync account, then they can be using Lync Online as part of Office 365 and still discussing or communicating with their fellow colleagues who might be using the Lync on-premise system as well. So that's not a problem. But as you've seen, and the way that you're using Lync today for today's webinar is the same way that you'd be using it as part of your subscription service. So here are the opportunities to also reduce your cost. If today you're contracting services like WebEx to do web conferencing, you no longer need to use that. So that's another opportunity to save money. Some of you may have discussed or are using today OneDrive, the consumer version. So the consumer version of OneDrive is limited to 7, actually just I think was increased to 15 gigs online. And the OneDrive for Business is included as part of Office 365. So OneDrive for Business will give each user 1 terabyte of cloud storage space to save all their files, which is more than sufficient for the majority of users when they are saving their files to OneDrive. It allows them to automatically synchronize these files between the cloud and their local desktop and then have them available from anywhere, which means that if I'm opening up if I'm on my smartphone and I need to open up a PowerPoint document, I can do that and I can save it directly back to my OneDrive for Business or directly to my SharePoint location, and therefore if I'm sharing it with anyone, any changes that I make are immediately available. Automatic version control is also a very important point here. Whether I'm using OneDrive for Business, which actually is a functionality of SharePoint, or a SharePoint portal itself, it means that I can make some changes, and if somebody feels that the changes that I have made are not correct or I have perhaps overwritten something, I can go back to different versions that have been saved in the past and pick those up. So a very nice way of not only providing control, but it's a form of backup as well to ensure that you don't lose any changes done in the past. Once again, unified communications is built into all of these tools. So whether I'm using one of the Office applications or I'm in a SharePoint portal, I will always be able to see whether my colleagues are actually connected, are online, if they're busy, if they're available to chat, so that if I'm reviewing a document and I want to be able to talk about that document directly with its author, I can do that directly from the document. I do not have to flip between different programs, and makes it a lot easier to collaborate. The other thing is too is that, if I'm running a project, and a project could be just an internal project, it could be a project shared with external collaborators, perhaps I have some freelance workers, etc. I can set up a project portal within my SharePoint. I can set up a team group, and I can invite people into that group. I can therefore share files. These are all common project files perhaps that I have, and I can also include a mailbox for that project, which is very nice because it means that I have a mailbox that's dedicated to a project, which I will see directly through the web browser in that SharePoint portal for that group, or I can also add it onto my Outlook. So if my Outlook is my most used tool that I have on my desktop, which I know is the case with the many users out there, and there is a new communication for a project, even if somebody has sent that into the project mailbox that is on the SharePoint side, I can make that available directly through my Outlook client as well. Okay, and there's an example of that, as you can see on the screen that I'm showing right now on the slides. Now, if you are using OneDrive for Business or SharePoint to access your documents or the shared documents that are on the portal, you will be able to see immediately a preview of that document directly through the web browser, so that without even opening up the file, you can see if the file is the correct file that you want to use. It also allows you to share. So if you want, you can either share it with internal or external collaborators as a link, or you can even do an anonymous link to outside people. And the anonymous link does not require any sort of Microsoft ID or anything to open up the file. Whereas if you do share it out to specific people, people, named people, you can actually do more granular permission controls, such as only the ability to read or to read and edit, etc. Okay, and you can see here from the Office applications as well that you have the same very easy technique to share directly from Word, Excel, and PowerPoint as you would do from the web portal as well. Now, I mentioned that enterprise social networking is one of the other major trends currently in the industry. And some organizations fear that it's basically like Facebook and that it will be a time waster. And first of all, I will say that it is a bit like Facebook in the sense of you are able to post any notice that you want, you can like it, you can reply to it, you can attach images and files, etc. But research has found that really the ability to communicate in an enterprise social networking environment allows your users to feel, first of all, more connected to each other and have much more real-time updates to perhaps projects that they're working on, or if they're looking for a piece of information. Very frequently when we are looking for something, we don't know who we need to ask. We don't know who the department or the specific person is, so we can use enterprise social networking to post our question or our query and have that information bubble up, so to speak, from any part of our organization, whether we are a small company working in a single office, or we're a multinational company that has various offices spread around the region or the world. It allows me to communicate with anyone within the organization and get the information I need as quickly as possible. And it allows me to connect to all of this information from any of my devices. So it could be my laptop, it could be a browser, it could be my smartphone. I can get all of the latest activity feeds, the news from all of my colleagues directly on these devices. It's important to note that enterprise social networking today in Office 365 is built in and is driven by the Yammer platform. And Yammer is the #1 business enterprise social networking platform. And with any of the enterprise subscription plans, it's included at no extra charge. Okay. So, simplifying IT. How do we simplify IT? I mentioned previously that we have ways of now doing all of the more common administration tasks directly through a web interface. So we can immediately see, first of all, the status of the service, if everything is running properly, if anything is in a degraded state, or if there's any unplanned activity. And we can do basically most of our day-to-day functions directly through the web interface. It also means that we don't have to jump to different applications or different web interfaces for the different server-side technologies. All of the Exchange, SharePoint, and Lync services are controlled through this single administration console. Okay, you can see there's quite a number of slides here indicating all of the rich functionality you get from the web interface. Now, today, if you're running an email server yourself, whether that be Exchange or any other platform, you obviously have to fight against spam and malware, viruses, etc., and are most likely employing a third-party platform to do this, whether it be a Semantic or a Mail Marshal or any of the other very well-known email anti-spam, antivirus tools. You no longer have to use that when you're using Office 365. You get built-in anti-spam and anti-malware, which will filter out any suspect or known viruses before it reaches your mailbox. And this has huge implications as well, because if you're running a traditional email server today, all emails, whether it's spam or with viruses, are clogging up your bandwidth and reaching your server before being scanned. Whereas with using the Office 365 cloud, these are being stopped directly at the Microsoft data center, and only the clean and valid emails are actually arriving into your inbox, so that you're not subjecting either your company or your users to unnecessary emails and bandwidth overuse. Microsoft uses multiple engines for their antivirus and anti-spam cleaning, and it is very highly effective. So in the time that we have been using Office 365 since it has started, well, I have not received any spam whatsoever. You can also run some very interesting reports from that. So if you need to see if you're getting emails from certain IP addresses, and you can also set up whitelists and blacklists as well. Now, security is always a very interesting area, and with Office 365, you get a number of layers of security that you can activate. Number one is that you can actually impose a security for your mobile devices, so that if your users are being allowed to access their emails through the mobile devices, you can demand that there be, let's say, a 4-digit PIN, so that if their device is lost or stolen, excuse me, that whoever happens to pick up that phone is not going to be able to read the corporate email just by opening up the phone. They will have to enter a 4-digit PIN. It also gives the organization, as well as the employee itself, the ability to wipe the phone if they've lost it. So if a user is traveling and they have lost their phone, whether they call up IT or they log onto the Office 365 web portal by themselves, they can remotely erase that phone by themselves. So a very handy ability to have. Not on this slide, but the other thing that has been added and is also at no extra charge is two-factor authentication for additional security. So if you feel that some of your mobile users and those who perhaps have more sensitive information require having two-factor authentication, Microsoft has multi-factor authentication at no additional charge for Office 365 subscribers, meaning that they will receive a phone call or an SMS or use a built-in application to provide a second form of authentication when they're trying to log on to their Office 365 services. I've already discussed the virtualization technology for the streaming of the Office Professional Plus package, so I won't go into much more detail about that. And I also mentioned that the new Office 2013 will run side by side with older versions. And this is particularly handy for those finance people that have created these complex Excel macros and have now, they've tested it, they've debugged their worksheets, their very complex worksheets, let's say on Excel 2007 or Excel 2010, and now are worried that by upgrading to 2013, it will break their macros, it will break their worksheet, and with this new technology, they don't have to worry about that. They can install the latest version, and if it does not run in their latest version, they can continue using it in their older version, as it's not overwritten. They run side by side. So this slide that you have now in front of you has a summary of all of the Office 365 plans. It's not all of them, but it's more of the common ones. And in fact, the most common plans are the ones with the orange columns on the left-hand side, which are the E1, E3, and E4 plans. And these are ones that are most complete. So this is probably a good point, a good time to also remind you about the major features that are available with Office 365. Each user gets a 50 gigabyte mailbox, which is a very, very large mailbox. However, if you have either the E3 or the E4 plan, you actually essentially have an unlimited mailbox. Even though your primary mailbox is still 50 gigabyte, you have unlimited archiving, which essentially means that your mailbox is unlimited in size. The E3 and E4 plans also include the Office Professional Plus package, which you install on your local machine, whether that be Mac or Windows, as part of your subscription, and also the ability to install that on up to 5 devices per user. But the E3 and E4 plan also include things like the unlimited archiving that we discussed, but also e-discovery and in-place hold, which means that for compliance purposes, if I have a reason to need to dig up an email that had been communicated by one of my employees maybe 5 years ago, and we suspect that perhaps it's been sent to the competition, I can find that email even if that email has been deleted or modified by anyone, by that user, and maybe that user's even left the company already a few years ago, I still have access to all of the original emails and can discover these emails. And the nice thing about the e-discovery tool is that it can be delegated to a compliance officer or to the company lawyer, so that IT doesn't have to get involved. IT doesn't like to get involved in these types of topics if there's a legal issue at hand, and they don't have to. They can delegate a web interface so that the compliance officer or company lawyer can do an e-discovery by themselves and find these emails. And in fact, the e-discovery does not only search emails, it will search anything across email, SharePoint, and as well Lync. So if it was even a Lync conversation through instant messaging, it will find it as well. All of the enterprise plans, the e-plans, include the OneDrive for Business, 1 terabyte cloud space per user. And rights management is also included. So if you want to increase your security for your documents, instead of trying to lock down each user's PC, as we've seen many companies try to do, where they even disable USB ports or access to cloud services and cloud lockers on the internet, instead of doing that, you can enable advanced rights management so that the files themselves, the Office documents, carry the protection with them no matter where they go. And if they're tried to be opened by a user who's not authorized, it will never be able to be opened. It's encrypted. So that's the end of the Office 365 section, and it's obviously one of the most popular services out there today. I'm going to move on now to the second service, and this will be much quicker because it has a very, you could say, a smaller footprint in terms of the service that it's providing, which is Windows Intune. So the fact that bring your own device and the fact that consumerization of IT has become a reality. All of our users are carrying multiple devices, multiple smartphones and tablets into the workplace, and we are giving them access to their emails or even maybe the collaboration portals or maybe even the unified communications tools, but we need to have a way of managing that. We don't want to just allow these devices onto our network without some sort of security or management tools. So this is where Windows Intune comes in. Windows Intune is Microsoft's service for managing the devices. And some of you may already use a tool like System Center on premise. And System Center is a great tool, very powerful, allows you to create packages to be sent as updates to each machine. Maybe you have a newer version of a piece of software that you need to distribute out. Instead of going out to each machine, you can create a package and send that out. And Windows Intune includes, you could call it System Center in the cloud. So it allows me to create packages. I can create perhaps software updates or a new application and have that pushed out to my computers. It also includes mobile device management, so I can do some very sophisticated and deep management, detailed management of my iOS devices, of my Windows Phone devices, as well as my Android devices. And it includes as well, for all my endpoint devices, System Center endpoint protection. In other words, for my Windows-based machines, if I do not have an antivirus package there today, Windows Intune will give that for me. Okay, so that's very important. And in the other thing that is available to you is the distribution of company applications. So if you have created any custom applications internally for your users where you need to distribute that to their smartphone devices, you can use Windows Intune for that as well. And I'll run through some scenarios for you. So very clearly, it's no longer that every user has just got one desktop or one device. And if you look at the statistics, 3 years ago, 2011, power users had between 5 to 7 internet connected devices, and that's obviously grown since then. The number of devices that each user has today is constantly growing and will only get bigger with the whole Internet of Things. So it's a big support question for IT is how do I give my users the flexibility to use these services, not lock them down, but still be able to manage the company resources that I'm providing to them. So here you want to be able to empower your users while having a management structure that allows you to access or remove the data that is company data. And this is where you can use Windows Intune, and either by itself or in conjunction with System Center 2012, if that's something that you have today, because Windows Intune will allow you to manage your devices no matter where they are. As long as they're internet connected, you can manage that. As you know, today System Center will manage anything that's on your company network. So as soon as a user comes in with a laptop into the office, whether it be Wi-Fi or with a wired connection, then System Center will see it and can administer or push out an update for them. Whereas with Windows Intune, even if the user is sitting at a coffee shop or sitting at home, I can still push out updates to them. So it's very, very powerful that way. Okay, so we've talked about that. So here's some of the different ways that we can do this. So today, if I've got System Center and I want to manage it, it's all on-premise based, right? We have this, you can see it within the yellow box. It is providing all of the updates that I need. I can push out group policies. I can also update Mac OS machines as well. And with the Intune, I can do it directly through the internet. It will not do Mac machines. I'll make that very clear today, although that might be coming up in the future. But I can definitely manage all of my Windows devices, my Windows tablets, iOS or Android devices through a single administration console, which is a web-based console. But what if I happen to have System Center 2012 today? If I add Intune to it, I have a single unified platform which allows me to create, let's say, an updated piece of software, a package. I can do it once, and that will be pushed out to the user no matter where they are, whether they're on-premise in the office or they are remote. I can do that through the combination of System Center and Windows Intune, and it will be a single administration interface. So that, as I had mentioned, is a very quick introduction to Intune. It's a very nice way to be able to manage your devices no matter where they are located, in the office or outside of the office. Give them mobile device management capabilities, push out packages, as well as the ability to give them an antivirus, updated antivirus engine so that they are always safe. The last component of this presentation is Windows Azure. And Windows Azure, I'm sure most of you have heard about it, is one of the leading infrastructure as a service and platform as a service components or providers in the or services in the marketplace. The first thing that I would probably want to mention here, which could be interesting if you do not know it, is that probably the most well-known infrastructure as a service provider in the world today is Amazon with their Amazon Web Services. Microsoft has a public commitment that says anytime Amazon drops their price, Microsoft will match it. And if you look back at any of the news in the last couple of years, you will see that anytime Amazon has announced a drop in their price, on the very same day Microsoft has either matched it or made it better. In fact, generally Microsoft's pricing is better because Amazon does a lot of regional pricing, whereas the Azure pricing has generally been the same no matter what region you are in. Excepting, of course, for currency differences. Now, Windows Azure is providing you infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. And it's built on a minute basis, which means that you only pay for what you use. This is especially handy for, you might be using it for test dev environments. You might want to set up a server, do some testing on it for whether it be a few days or a few months, and then you can shut it down and you will only get billed for what you actually use. It is highly reliable, and you can set up your servers or your solutions in high availability the same way you would do it on premise, and Microsoft will guarantee for you a 99.95% financially backed SLA. And this is very important because all of Microsoft's online services such as Office 365, Windows Intune or Windows Azure carry financially backed service level agreements. This is part of providing this comfort level to your management that they're putting their money where the mouth is, and that if you have any failures or downtime that exceeds the SLA, then they will pay you back credits. Okay, so Windows Azure is one of these platforms that allows you to extend your data center. And I'll be the first to tell you that I don't expect you to move all of your line of business applications to the cloud. I don't think that's realistic, and I think there's still an area where having a private data center is going to be necessary. Perhaps for your more mission critical applications that you are running today that you don't feel comfortable, and if you've not adopted cloud yet, you obviously are not going to feel comfortable moving your entire infrastructure up to the public cloud. However, in terms of taking first steps, Windows Azure is wonderful for a number of different things. So whether you want to take your public website and put it on Windows Azure, as we have done, for example, we moved our website to Windows Azure, and we noticed a huge increase in speed in terms of responsiveness. And that's, of course, because of the huge bandwidth available going into the Microsoft data centers. You can use it for virtual machines. You can use it for cloud storage. And I'll talk about a very interesting solution that is with Azure's cloud storage that you may not be aware of in the following slides as well. So the cloud computing scene, and we've talked about this in a previous slide. Here now we're talking about the two middle columns, infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. So you're getting a lot of the layers, the computing layers taken care of for you. But you do not have to do the entire job yourself as you would do with the left-hand column, which is do it yourself. Or it's not Office 365 where you're getting software as a service and you don't have to do anything on your side. We're talking about IaaS and PaaS. So how does Microsoft blend their traditional model of on-premise with cloud? And obviously, there are different areas that are of concern to organizations, whether it be identity, virtualization, management, development. How do I use both, or how do I choose which one to use? And Microsoft has done a very good job here of saying you don't ever have to choose one or the other. It's not an all or nothing proposition. Here you can choose to either use your traditional on-premise if you want, or use the cloud, or a combination of both. And hybrid models are available in many of these technologies. So for example, if we look at identity from the outset, we know that we use Active Directory in most of our organizations for doing authentication, where we have our user credentials. So today I can still have my Active Directory on-premise, and in fact best practices does say that we should always have our primary domain controller on-premise. But we can have an Active Directory also in Azure, which will provide us additional redundancy. So if I lose my internet connection or my Active Directory goes down, I can have a replicated Active Directory running in the cloud, which will allow my users to continue to authenticate and use the applications that they continue to use on a daily basis. From a virtualization point of view, I can take my virtual machines that I'm running on Hyper-V, and I can pick them up and put them directly in Azure, and they will run untouched. And that is a huge benefit. So if I'm using virtualization technology today, which most customers are, you can take your Hyper-V virtual disks, put them up into Azure, and they will run with usually no changes or with minimal changes. That will immediately allow you to free up your computing resources, or when your infrastructure requires replacement or is out of support, will allow you to transition to the cloud a lot easier. How about when we're talking about management? So for management, for those that are using System Center today that I had discussed, System Center not only will view your virtual machines and your services running in your private data center on-premise, it actually can view and manage your Azure virtual machines as well. So whether you're looking at your virtual machines, how they're performing, you need to do administration tasks on them, look at the storage space assigned, etc. You can use System Center as your single administration console. And from a development point of view, it's important to note that Microsoft is not only allowing Microsoft tools to be used with their Azure platform. You can use, apart from .NET and Visual Studio, you can use PHP, you can use Java, you can use other development platforms, and Microsoft is especially recently being very aggressive to open up their platform to multiple development environments, which means that you can use Visual Studio, for example, to even create iOS applications or even PlayStation games, and you can use Visual Studio directly on Azure as well itself. So that's a good overview in terms of some of the more common things that you'll be using. And Azure provides a lot of building blocks. So, if you're a media company and you are constantly streaming video, or you've got video stored in your servers and you want to provide that for a number of different devices, one of the advantages of Azure is you can use the media services, which will provide on-the-fly real-time transcoding, so that you can keep just one copy of your media file on Azure and don't have to transcode that to all the different devices that might connect and try to consume or stream that media file. Azure can take care of that for you. The same way as identity, you can have federation services directly installed in Azure, so that you can immediately use a single set of credentials, like your Active Directory credentials, to authenticate yourself not just to Microsoft software, but to other cloud software such as Salesforce.com, for example. I can take care of all of these authentications through a central authentication platform. Storage, which I'll come to in a bit, but even whether it be educational institutions or financial industry that need to do things like big data or big compute, the Azure platform provides a Hadoop compatible infrastructure, so that I can spin up hundreds of virtual machines or computing nodes to run a big job, a big data set, to analyze data, and instead of perhaps waiting weeks to get back a result, I can get it back in a matter of hours or days. The other thing is I have caching services. So if I have very highly used and highly intensive transactional database type of operations, I can have a lot of this in memory. I also have the content delivery network that we had mentioned in the global map earlier, and I can also create site-to-site virtual networking connections between my organization and Azure, or even multiple locations, so that that whole Azure cloud and anything I decide to do on there and all the servers that I deploy will look like simply an extension of my own network, an extension of my own data center. And that's the way you should look at Azure, is a highly flexible, cost-effective platform for you to extend your computing power without having to invest in additional infrastructure yourself. Now, from a storage point of view, Microsoft purchased a company approximately a year and a half ago, a little bit more than that, called StoreSimple. And using a combination of the Azure Cloud Storage and the StoreSimple appliance, which is simply a 2U appliance that you would stick into your data center, into one of your racks, you can achieve 60 to 80% better TCO than the traditional storage systems. And I've had quite a number of customers that have been considering upgrading their SAN or having a new solution to try and mitigate the problem of a constantly increasing data storage requirement that is happening to most customers out there today. So if you're one of these customers that are constantly buying new shelves of storage to cope with the increasing data storage demands, you should definitely take a look at StoreSimple, because you combine this with Azure Cloud Storage, and using a single appliance you can get rid of all of your tape backups that's no longer necessary, as it can do both onboard local snapshots as well as Azure Cloud snapshots. And using one of these devices, even though you will have as a very minimum 8 to 20 terabytes of local storage available to you, you can actually manage 200, 300, or 400 terabytes of space using this appliance directly. And this really simplifies your storage architecture, because if you look at how storage is done today, and you can see this on the bottom of the slide, you usually have your primary storage, your SAN storage, and archival storage. Sometimes that's also backed up to disk, which is then dumped to tape, and then it's taken off-site. And very frequently, depending on your type of organization, you might have a DR site as well for all of these requirements. So all of these different steps and the tape backup as well as compliance, all of this is simplified into two components: your StoreSimple appliance and your Azure Cloud Storage. And this allows you to greatly reduce your costs, as well as not having to worry about support contracts, which today in the UAE, for example, there is the law is that you need to keep data for 10 years. And that means that even if you have data stored on a tape for 10 years, you also need to have that infrastructure that will allow you to restore that if that's necessary. And as you can imagine, storage infrastructure from 10 years ago is quite different than it is today and requires a lot of time, money, and resources to keep that maintained for compliance purposes. So the Store Simple solution is very flexible. It's not intended for high IOPS types of scenarios, but it's excellent if you're talking about for file server. In other words, I've got file shares that I want to back up or I want to store. I have SharePoint document libraries. Or I want to archive other files. Store Simple is an excellent solution for that. And in a DR type of scenario, you can immediately put in a new Store Simple box, and all of the files are immediately available to all of your users, even if the box is empty. It will actually present the entire file list and automatically stream down the files from the internet as required. And it uses a very intelligent 3-tiering system to ensure that all of the most commonly used files are actually sitting on the local appliance on high-speed SSD drives, with a second tier being of SAS drives also on the local appliance. And only once these two tiers have completely filled up are the least used files streamed out to the cloud, meaning that all of your files are always backed up with using snapshots, cloud snapshots, but giving you also the performance of a local appliance so that your office is not having to wait or depend on the internet to access the files. All right, if you're interested in that, we can definitely look at that in more detail. So to wrap things up, you need to start looking at, how can I leverage cloud technologies to really provide benefits to my organization? Am I looking for Exchange or SharePoint or Lync or even just the newest versions of Office Professional Plus? For that, you need to look at Office 365. Do I need to do PC and mobile device management? Or do I need to have a system center type of functionality that can access or manage my devices no matter where they are on the internet? That would be Windows Intune. If you're looking for a way of having infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, whether that be virtual machines, or I need DR strategy, or I need storage, or I need an environment for my test dev machines, or I want to really leverage the Microsoft Datacenters for their huge bandwidth to host my websites, then Windows Azure is a fabulous platform for that. And do I want to provide a single sign-on platform architecture for all of my services for my users so that they only use a single authentication technique? Then I can roll that out even right directly on Azure, so I don't have to have any infrastructure on site. But once again, that is your choice. You can do that on premise or on site. Microsoft does not force you one way or the other. Or you're looking to increase your security, whether that be using rights management services or multi-factor authentication and encryption services. These are available in both Office 365 as well as Windows Azure. So there's a lot of different areas that you can leverage Microsoft cloud technologies to provide improvements and benefits and additional security to your organization. I'm very happy that you have attended the session this afternoon. As LiveRoute, we're here to help you with this journey, and I'll open up the floor now to any questions that you might have on any of these services or anything that's related to cloud at all. We'd be more than happy to take your questions. So please go ahead. So it looks like we have a fairly quiet audience today. Feel free to please send us any questions that you have. I will actually write in the instant messaging section right now my email address as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to send that to us. We'll be more than happy to get in touch with you or respond to your email. And once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And any feedback as well to the presentation that you think would be good for us for future sessions, for improving the session, or for topics that you'd like us to cover, we'd be more than happy to do this. This is going to be a regular session that we are scheduling moving forward, and we'd be more than happy to have you attend all of our sessions in the future as well. All right, if there's no questions, then I will finish off this session today. Thank you for joining us, and please make sure to watch your emails for future sessions that we'll be announcing shortly. Thank you, and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.